Hello everyone and welcome to another modding video. Today's video will be on Visual Studio Code or VS Code. VS Code is a free editor made by Microsoft. It was released in 2015 and is the most popular developer environment tool. VS Code has a wide market for community contributors and as such has the biggest package/extension market there is. Why should you use VS Code? VS Code is the best editor for beginners in PDX scripting and one of the best tools for experts in PDX scripting. It is the most modding feature-rich editor and is the most used by programmers of all our editors. Why should you not use VS Code? As counterintuitive as it might sound, VS Code is the least friendly of our editors for beginners. The interface can be complicated and it offers so many features one might get lost. For this editor we will do the tutorial in a different order. Since a very big part of the VS Code Hearts of Iron 4 experience is in extensions, which are VS Code's name for packages, we will install those first. How to install extensions. In VS Code, installing extensions is very easy. Click on the fifth icon from the top. It's called Extensions. You can also access it by Ctrl+Shift+X. Search for the extension you want and simply hit enter. You can also find them in your browser in the VS Code marketplace, but make sure you get Visual Studio Code and not Visual Studio. These are different programs. You may have to restart your editor once you have installed an extension. Before we continue with the rest of the tutorial, we have some recommended extensions. These extensions are CWTools, Paradox Syntax Highlighting, Hearts of Iron 4 Mod Utilities, Draw.io Integration, vscode-pdf, Open in Github, FileUtils, Todo Tree, and Sort Lines. You can find the links to all these packages in the description, but you can also get them on the marketplace or search for them in your extensions. Coming from another editor, you have several extensions to make your life easier. I personally use the Atom key map, and it changes a lot of key bindings to be what you would expect for Atom. So let's say opening the console, I'm just giving an example, this isn't actually the case, but let's say opening the console in VS Code was Ctrl+Shift+E, and that tool key map would set it to be Ctrl+Shift+P. So I would recommend installing one of these if you are coming from another editor. Only pick the one which you used, obviously, either the Atom key map, the Sublime text key map, or the Notepad++ key map. Recommended settings. To open settings, press Ctrl, We will first make sure that CWTools is installed properly. You can go to Extensions and then CWTools Configuration. Here under Cache, enter this file path. If your Steam is installed somewhere else, obviously this path is different, but if you've installed Steam somewhere else, I'm sure you know where that is. Make sure these are backslashes as well. And just copy this line because we're going to need it elsewhere as well. Now go to Hearts of Iron 4 Mod Utilities. And enter the same path over here. Make sure Load DLC Contents is on. For a generally better experience, but keep it off if you find that you are running out of memory on your computer. I haven't personally had this problem, but I have a decent PC, so your experience may vary. We have some other suggestions which I recommend for ease of use. I'm going to search for suggestions, and I am going to turn off accept suggestion on enter, which means that it will only accept suggestions. So suggestions are when you type something and you can hit either tab or enter to autocomplete it. When I want to autocomplete, I use tab. When I want to make a new line, I use enter. So I want a specific distinction between the two, so I turn this off. Also make sure that snippet suggestions are at the top and not in line. Almost always I want to use snippet suggestions before normal suggestions. We will get to snippets later, but for now turn the setting to top. Now search for word wrap. Now you'll see a couple settings. First off, we want to turn on editor word wrap. It is off by default. It will make sure that lines that go past your screen to the right get started on a new line. But it is only visual, so it is not actually a new line, but you'll be able to read what's past it, which can be very useful, so you don't have to scroll to the right. Then second, we want to turn on word wrap column to 120. By default, it is 80, which is for some coding languages important, but not for HOI4, though it is still recommended to stick to 120. Now we will also turn off Explorer Auto Reveal. This was a very annoying feature to me. It means that whenever you enter a new file, it will scroll to that file in the tree view, which you will see in a bit. So I'm turning that off. To begin with our video of actually explaining the editor, we are first going to add a workspace. Click on File, and then click on Add Folder to Workspace. For our case, I'm going to go to my mod folder and go to nsig and click Add. Now, when I click on Explorer, you'll see that there is now a tree view. So we can open any files we want, let's say abilities, and obviously we open the file. We can also save this workspace to use it later, which I do recommend. If you close your workspace, for example, that means you can just reopen it easily, and also the untitled looks better when you give it a name. The same workspace will be loaded on default, so you don't have to worry about having to do everything again every time, or having to open your files again. That is not necessary. Extensions explained. The first major package for HOI4 modding is CWTools. CWTools has language support for Paradox and has all the commands which are described as well. It actively checks for mistakes in your code and tells you of a lot of errors that the game wouldn't tell you about. It will tell you at the bottom over here. So when I open a HOI4 file, it should automatically at the bottom detect that it is a HOI4 file. But if it doesn't, you can always click on it and manually search for HOI4. Along with this extension, you'll want the syntax highlighting extension. The most important extension of our extensions here is HOI4 Mod Utilities. This extension gives you interactive previews of a bunch of things. The first of these features is the world map preview. It shows you any errors, states, provinces, supply regions, strategic regions, and can be really helpful when your map crashes before you get into the game. You can open it by going into HOI4 Mod directory like we did. We are currently in NSEG. Opening console with Ctrl-Shift-P. And then searching HOI4 Mod Utilities and clicking Preview World Map. You'll see it calculating for a second, and then it starts loading the map. As you can see, we can zoom in, we can see all the IDs, and you can scroll with the right click. This map has a lot of options. You can select provinces, states, strategic regions, supply area, or warnings. You can also search. So let's say we want province 6,336. You'll see that it pans to 6,336. You also see more errors than you normally would in vanilla. So let's say we click on warnings. You can see that some errors about victory points, for example, or supply areas not being contiguous, which is obviously very important because having split up supply zones can be very annoying. So it's very useful for modding. And the second feature is the focus tree preview. So let's open a focus tree here. So let's open the French focus tree. And then at the top right, click Preview HOI4 file. When you zoom out, you can see that my focus tree is over here. And obviously it is not currently localized, but in the game will be. So this is an easy way. So let's say I'm changing the political effort position. Let's say I'm changing that to 30. It should automatically reload. And yep, it is in a different position now. So when I undo, you'll see it goes back to the original position. So that can be very useful. The third feature is the event tree preview. This is a really good feature and shows you the path of events and how they interact. So let's open an event file. Let's open the German event file, and at the top right we will first click Show Graph. This shows you linearly how events happen and in what order. So if there were events that had a chain, they would go down the chain and you would see all of that. You can also open an actual graph, and it shows how events interact as well in a slightly more visual way. But obviously you won't see more of the event content, but you will see the title of the event. The fourth feature is technology preview. This is useful if you are not currently in HOI4, since you can do reload technologies. You use it by opening a tech tree in common/technology. So let's do that right now, and we will open the armor tree. So again, at the top right, you will see a HOI4 icon appear. So we will click that. And you can see that automatically it loads the background and it loads all of the tech. As you can see, it sometimes has some trouble with detecting modded pictures, but you can see the text, and let's say I move the position of the first one. So let's say I move it to be x equals 2. You'll automatically see it move. The fifth feature is displaying GFX in .gfx files and .dds files. So when we go to interface and open, for example, core.gfx and click on Hearts of Iron, you can see all the different icons that are in this GFX file. So you can also go to GFX, let's say this icon, and you can also see the DDS in your editor. Now we get to our next extension. Draw.io is a way to design focus trees first before making them in-game and does not require coding experience. To start, open the console with Ctrl-Shift-P and search for draw.io. Then click New Draw.io diagram. Give it a name in a place where it doesn't interfere. So let's say draw diagram. And you can get started. Since I am neither an expert in and also not interested in draw.io, I will not be explaining it. You can find other tutorials on this. The FileUtils extension allows you to do a lot of extra things to your files through command line. For example, in VS Code base, you can't rename a file from over here. You will have to go to the tree view and right click on it. So this extension allows you to do that, and it also allows you to just Ctrl-Shift-P and search for rename and hit enter or duplicate and also do the same. Sort lines is a package much like the one in Atom, and it allows for natural sorting. So let's say I've got a list of numbers, let's say 1, 2, 3, and then 3, 4, 5, and then 2, 3, 4, 5. You would expect 2, 3, 4, 5 to be last, since it's the biggest to us, the human. But computers don't work in biggest, they use in first number. Since 3 is bigger than 2, it will be last. So when we do Ctrl-Shift-P and sort lines and then ascending, you'll see 2, 3, 4, 5 is second. So with this package, you can Ctrl-Shift-P, sort lines, natural, and it'll be last. To-do tree is our next extension. To-do tree is an extension that is much better in VS Code than it is in Atom. It is way faster and also has a nicer view. To get started, left click on to-do tree. It's the 5th icon in your tree, and then you can open some files and you'll see that, hey, there are 3 to-dos in this file, and for example there is 1 in this file. You can now finally get to removing some of them, hopefully. Other features. Like in Atom, you can also search in Workspace, but it's a lot faster than in Atom. You can access it by right-clicking on a folder and clicking Find in Folder. This sometimes changes the location. It might be at the top, might be in the middle, but Find in Folder is what you're looking for. You can search for your word, so let's say focus, and you can click for match case, which means that it will check this capital letter F. So let's do that, and you'll see there are way less results. You can also search for full word. So let's say it did find focus, but there's a letter behind it, such like D. It won't find it, whereas if you remove that, it will find it. You can also use regular expressions. These work exactly the same as they would in Atom. You can find other tutorials on that. The diff feature works a bit more annoying than the one in Atom, but it's still fine. So let's compare. Let's say I will open another focus tree. Let's compare the German tree to the French tree. As you can see, you can drag windows to split them. So let's now Control-Shift-P and search for compare active file with. So we'll always select this one first, but it won't automatically select the second one. You will have to click it, and then obviously it tries to pick this right one first, so just compare over there, and it will make a new window. Sadly, there is no way to make it ignore white space, but it is still a pretty decent diff checker, and you can just copy it over, whatever you want. Snippets in VS Code are functionally the same as in Atom. They allow for the same multi-cursor behavior, but are technically a bit more annoying to make because of VS Code's inability to accept blocks of text. I will show you what I mean. First off, open the console with Ctrl-Shift-P and search snippet. And you will enter configure user snippets. Insert snippet inserts the snippet. That's not what we're looking for. So let's say configure user snippets. You'll want to hit HOI4. And as you can see, I have made a couple snippets already. These snippets will be available for you to get on an external link, and these are better than the ones that come with the extensions. I will also leave the link in the description. In VS Code snippets, the first bit of text, in this case focus snippet, is the name. This will be shown when you start typing. So if I'm typing focus, you'll see over here the name shows up. Prefix is what you should type for the snippet to show up. So if I'm typing trigger for, sorry, that's a bad example. Let's say, just say pass. Obviously focus won't show up because there's no focus in this. But if I'm typing focus, it will show up. So this is the most important part of the snippet. Body is the actual text of the snippet. So as you can see, it looks a lot less nice than in Atom. That is because VS Code doesn't accept tabs and it doesn't accept enters. Every line you have to start with a quotation mark and end with a quotation mark followed by a comma. Also note that you start the body with a colon followed by a bracket. Since VS Code ignores tabs, you have a command to insert a tab. This command is \tab. The last bit of the snippet is the description. So when I type my snippet, you can see that this is the description. In HOI4 modding, it's not really relevant, but it should still be something that clarifies what you're inserting. Now let's put this knowledge into action. I will copy a focus. I know is pretty full of things. So let's say I'm going to copy the Mannheim project. I'm going to put it in a new file, double clicking here. And I'm first going to remove all the tabs on the left by selecting everything and pressing Shift Tab a couple times. After that, I will convert all the tabs to \T. You can do this by using the replace tool, find a replace. But if you're in a bigger file and you don't want to replace everything and you're not feeling like selecting and searching in selection, you can press Ctrl D and it will select all occurrences by holding it, and then I will type \T. So now you can see it's starting to look a bit more complicated. So now I'll type home, start our beginning quotation mark, now end, and our ending quotation mark followed by a comma, and then our last couple lines which didn't have it yet. Also the ending comma and the opening quotation mark. For new lines, you also want to just put in quotation marks which are empty. Or you can also do \n, but this is nicer to see how it's actually built in. So I'll copy this and I'll go back to our snippet. And now when I copy one of these snippets and I will call it pre-done focus, I will paste this in the body. Sometimes the indentation goes a bit wrong. And I will give it a description. And save the file. Now when I go to insert focus, you'll see it shows up under done focus. And you can see in the preview it shows everything we want, and when we insert it you'll see that it has the exact same layout as the other focus did. This is very useful for focus modding, event modding, and modding in general, since it saves a lot of time. You don't have to copy focuses. Like in Atom, you can control your cursor by $1. So let's say I want to, like in this focus, immediately start editing the name. So let's make that $1. So it will now, when I save and edit focus, it will put my cursor over here and I can immediately start typing, well, let's say your focus, whatever. So you don't have to click there as well. It's also a tiny time saver, but in bigger things, such as events where you have to edit all the options, the title, the ID, it saves a lot of time. Like we saw before, VS Code allows you to resize your windows similarly to how Atom does. So you could, for example, have your error log over here. Just check your errors, have some localization here, have your code here, and do all the modding you would normally do. VS Code also has Git support, both in command line function, so that's in the terminal. You can see the console is working, and in visual representation. So you can go to source control or Ctrl+Shift+G, and you can see all the changes that have been made, and you can commit and push as well. But I would recommend, if you're using this, watch a tutorial on it. This is not an in-depth guide on using Git in VS Code. The opening GitHub feature, although not built in VS Code, works exactly like you would expect. Open the console with Ctrl+Shift+P and type open file, and you'll see opening GitHub file shows up. Sorry, this is not a Git file. I will do it in the event file. Open in GitHub, and I will click it, and you will see two options. This is a branch. This is master. So you can have multiple branches which you can select. I'm just going to select master for now because it's the branch I'm currently on. And as you can see, it opened the file. VS Code also supports saving with and without BOM. As you can see over here, it says UTF-8 with bomb. So I can open it, I can save with encoding, and I can say UTF-8 with bomb or normal, and that it can be very useful for localization, although if you copy files it should always keep the same bomb setting. Well folks, that was all for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it and learned some new tips and tricks to use VS Code better. See you in the next video.